have a date, so don't wait up." She said it while zipping her boot, not even looking at me. The same boot I bought her last Christmas. The one she said made her feel dangerous. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched her reflection in the hallway mirror. She was checking her hair, twisting a strand behind her ear like a teenager headed to prom. My dinner was still warm on the table. 2 plates, lit candle, soft jazz playlist humming in the background. She hadn't even glanced at it. "You're joking," I said finally. She turned around confused, like I was the one ruining the mood. "No, Lau, I'm not joking." She picked up her perfume and sprayed it twice into the air, then walked through it like she was starring in some indie film where the husband doesn't exist. I should have screamed, should have begged or raged or smashed the wine glass in my hand. Instead, I said, "Have fun." Her heel paused mid-step. Then she scoffed and left the house like she couldn't wait to forget my name. I didn't follow. I didn't call. I sat down at the untouched table, cut my steak, and chewed it like a robot. She didn't see the envelope I'd placed under her plate. She didn't see the email that had come in that morning. She didn't know that 3 nights ago I was at the same bar she was headed to, and I'd seen everything. Not just her. Him. His fingers on her back, the way she leaned into his whisper like it was sacred scripture. What she doesn't know yet is this. I'm not the man I was a week ago, not even the man I was this morning. She gave me silence for weeks. Tonight, I give it back, but louder, because you don't get to shatter someone with a smirk and expect them to sweep up the pieces. Not anymore. She was gone for exactly 19 minutes before I stood up, not because I wanted to follow her, not because I had some cinematic revenge plan cooked up. I just couldn't stand the smell of the rosemary chicken anymore. I'd cooked it for her. My favorite dish, she claimed, was hers, and now the scent was clinging to my shirt like betrayal itself. I threw it all in the trash. Plates, candles, uneaten food, all of it. I didn't even take the trash bag out, just slammed the lid shut and walked out of the kitchen like I was leaving a funeral. Then I opened the cabinet above the fridge. There was an old flour bag in there that no one had touched since the pandemic. Behind it, taped to the back wall with masking tape, was a manila folder. Not hidden well, just forgotten by someone who never thought I'd look. She used to keep printouts in there, recipes, budget ideas, once upon a time even notes I'd written her. But for the last 2 weeks, I'd seen her sneaking something in there after our arguments. Quietly, always, after checking if I was in the shower or walking the dogs, I opened the folder. Inside were 10 printed pages, receipts, hotel check-ins, a napkin with a phone number, an Uber drop-off screenshot, and photos. One in particular, her in his lap in a car, not even bothering to keep her face out of frame. My stomach tightened like someone had hooked their hand under my rib cage and started twisting. I didn't cry. That would have been too easy. Instead, I laughed. The kind of laughter that only happens when your reality is breaking in real time. Then I sat on the kitchen floor and stared at the photo for 10 minutes straight. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because I'd already suspected it, and now I had proof. But here's the part one can't explain. I didn't feel hate. I felt relief. All this time, I've been walking around with this weight in my chest, blaming myself for the distance, for her silence, for the way she rolled away from me at night like I was furniture. Now, I knew it wasn't about me. It was about Broen. That stupid name, that stupid grin, that smug smirk I'd seen in the bar mirror when he thought no one was watching. The The same bar where I left a tip big enough for the bartender to open his mouth, and open it he did. Names, dates, descriptions, even what Broen drinks and how he brags when he thinks the music's too loud for anyone to hear. That was 3 nights ago. Tonight she was meeting him again. Same bar, different plan. Which she didn't know was I'd already made a phone call. Not to a lawyer, to someone he knows. Someone who has a lot to lose if the truth came out. The clock on the stove blinked 8:12 p.m. She was probably halfway into her glass of wine by now. I stood up slowly, folder in hand, because now it wasn't about confronting her. It was about making sure she finally saw what it feels like to be invisible. I didn't take the folder with me. I wanted to walk into that bar, slam it on the table between them, and ask if Broen thought her handwriting on a hotel receipt was as sexy as her lingerie. But that would have been theatrical and useless. People like her don't feel shame. They just get better at disguising their impulses. Instead, I left it in the dishwasher, top rack, between the plates. Let her find it during cleanup if she ever bothered to do the dishes again. I drove. No destination, just movement. Fast, sharp turns through suburban intersections until I was outside a liquor store I hadn't been to in years. I didn't go inside. Didn't need to. I just sat in the car and stared at the neon sign flashing like a heartbeat. I could feel something changing inside me. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was subtraction, a pulling away of emotion, a kind of mental silence I'd never felt before. Like someone had hit a mute button on my soul. I opened my phone not to call her, not to check social media. I opened a voice recorder and I started talking. Day 1. I said she left at 7:48 p.m. She said she had a date. I didn't argue. I just sat down and ate alone. Steak cold now. There's rosemary in my teeth. I don't think I'll be able to eat it again. I paused. I should be angry, but I'm not. I'm watching myself from somewhere far away, and the man I'm watching is about to disappear. I hit stop, saved the file, labeled it something vague, LRN1.wave. I didn't know why I was doing it. Maybe to preserve proof for a therapist I'd never go to. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to make sure I'd remember the exact moment I stopped being her husband. By the time I pulled back into our street, her car was still gone. But something was different. The porch light was off. I always left it on for her, even when she was late, out of habit or hope. This time I'd left it off on purpose. There was something about the darkness that suited the night. I sat in the living room with the folder open beside me, but I didn't look at it. I turned on the security app instead, checked the locks, looked at the front door camera, motion alert, 2:06 a.m. Malene, heels in her hand, hair messy, makeup smeared. She wasn't smiling. She looked panicked. She tried the door, found it locked. I hadn't changed the locks. I just turned the deadbolt. She knocked once, then again harder. I didn't move. From the camera, I watched her try to peer through the frosted glass, trying to see if any lights were on. She called my phone once. I let it ring. She knocked again, this time whispering something I couldn't make out. Probably my name. Eventually, she slumped against the door, sat there for 6 minutes. Then she got up, cursed into the night, and walked back to her car. She didn't drive off. She just sat there with the engine running. And that's when I smiled. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because for the first time in a long, long time, I realized she was no longer in control. She left for a date, but now she had no house, no bed, no warm porch light waiting for her. For the first time in our marriage, She was the one on the outside, and I wasn't going to let her back in. Not yet. By 5:40 a.m., the car was still outside. She hadn't gone home. Or maybe she had no place to go. I wasn't sure. I didn't care enough to wonder. The irony of it all was that I'd spent the last year desperately trying to get her attention, and now that I had it, I didn't want it anymore. I brewed coffee in silence. The good beans, the ones she always said were too bitter for mornings. I drank them black, standing barefoot in the kitchen, watching her silhouette through the window blinds. She hadn't moved, not even once. Like she was frozen in time or too ashamed to ring the doorbell again. I didn't plan what I did next. Maybe that's what made it so satisfying. I walked out the back door, walked around the side of the house and stood by her car window. She didn't see me until I tapped once, gently on the glass. Her head snapped up, eyes red, hair wild. Her seat reclined like she'd tried to sleep but couldn't. She opened the window about an inch, not enough to let in the cold or the conversation. "Lel," she whispered like my name was a password. I stood still, said nothing. She looked like she didn't know whether to cry or explode. "Can you open the door? I left my charger inside. My phone's at 6%. I shook my head. "Not today." "Are you serious?" "You said not to wait up," I said flatly. "I didn't." Her face twisted. "It was just dinner." "That's all it was. I didn't ask. You locked me out. Technically, I just locked the door." "This is insane," she said, shoving the car door open and stepping out like she thought she could still reset this. "You're being dramatic." There it was again, that word, dramatic. The same word she used when she told me about Broen, like he was a harmless hobby. Like he wasn't a symptom of the rot she let spread through us while I was busy making grocery lists and trying to fix our plumbing myself because she said we didn't need another bill. "You kept receipts," I said, "and photos." Her face went white. "What?" "In the flower cabinet. I saw everything." That was when the act dropped. Malene froze. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked like she'd been hit in the stomach. Then she tried to laugh. "You went through my stuff. You left it where you thought I'd never look, but I did." She stepped toward me. "It wasn't supposed to be anything real. I was just feeling lost. You were so distant lately. You kept pictures." "I know," she whispered. I know. That part. Okay, that part was stupid, but it wasn't." She stopped. "I'm not in love with him. I'm not." That made me smile a little. Not because I believed her, but because the moment she had to say it out loud, she started to doubt herself. "I'm going inside," I said. She tried to follow me. "No, Lel, please. You slept with someone else and left me a plate of cold steak. Please isn't going to cut it." "Just talk to me," she begged. "Just let me explain what's been going on in my head. Please, you have to understand I didn't think you'd ever find out." She realized her mistake the second it left her lips. I tilted my head so if I hadn't, you'd still be sneaking around. "No." I stopped. I opened the door just enough to slip through and shut it behind me before she could grab it. I didn't look back. I locked it, turned off the porch light again, and then something shifted in me. Not anger, not vengeance. It was clarity. She was trying to use the version of me she remembered, the one who cried over the ending of sad movies, who once apologized for making soup too salty as a weakness. But she forgot one thing. People like me, quiet, soft, predictable people, we don't scream. We vanish. And the vanishing had already begun. Malene didn't come back that night. Not to knock, not to call. Her car stayed parked 2 houses down, probably because she didn't want the neighbors asking questions. Her pride was loud, even in the dark. but mine had become something far quieter, something with teeth. I spent the evening in the guest room, not because I had to, but because I realized that was the only space in the house untouched by her. No framed photos of us and matching raincoats, no scented candles I never liked. Just a twin bed, a small lamp, and a closet filled with forgotten winter coats and off-season regrets. Around midnight, I walked into our shared bathroom. I wasn't sure why. Maybe to brush my teeth. Maybe to remind myself this was still my house, too. I flipped on the light and noticed immediately something was missing. Her drawer, the one that always stuck and made that scraping sound every morning at 7:03 a.m., was empty. Gone. The hairbrush with the broken bristle, the copper eyeliner, the little jar of migraine balm I used more than she did. She'd packed. She'd come in at some point, maybe while I was asleep, and taken just enough to make it clear she was leaving, but not enough to admit it to herself. I checked the closet. Her side was thinned out. Her favorite black coat missing. Her hiking boots, the ones we bought on a whim but never used, gone. But not all of it. She'd left behind the red scarf I bought her in Chicago, the one she claimed was too loud to wear, but I knew she secretly loved in her backup wedding band, the one we bought on Etsy when the original got too tight. People don't leave behind wedding bands unless they're making a statement. I sat down on the edge of the bed with the band in my hand and whispered something out loud. Not to her, not to anyone in particular, just to the air. I'm not doing this dance because I could feel it coming. The apology arc, the guilt to gaslight routine, the tragic monologue where she tried to convince me that my silence was more painful than her betrayal. And right on cue, at 3:18 a.m., my phone lit up. Malene, you're being cruel now. I came back to talk. You locked me out. You win. Can we fix this or not? No period at the end. That meant she was angry. I turned the phone over, screened down. I knew what she wanted, not to fix anything. She wanted equilibrium. She wanted me to fold first because that's what I always did. I was the peacemaker, the diffuser, the guy who once apologized for her forgetting our anniversary because I should have reminded her. But not this time. This time I fell asleep with the ring in my hand. Not even under the covers. Just sitting there like I was guarding something sacred or maybe mourning it. When I woke up, the ring was gone. I thought maybe I dropped it. Searched the bed, the floor, the sheets. Nothing. Then I walked out to the kitchen and there she was, standing by the sink, holding the ring in her robe like nothing had happened. Hair messy, no makeup, her favorite mug in her hand, the one with the faded letter M on it that she claimed looked like a heart if you turned it sideways. You weren't supposed to find that, she said quietly, holding the ring up. You weren't supposed to take it back. She looked tired, like someone who'd been rehearsing a speech and suddenly forgot the words. I didn't sleep, she admitted. I noticed. Are you really throwing this all away, Malene? I said slowly. You walked out. You called it a date. You walked out knowing I had dinner waiting. You called it a date. Her eyes welled up and I watched her fight the urge to use that as leverage. The tears, the trembling chin. She was calculating whether to cry or rage, and for once I didn't flinch. You're hurting me, she said. I know. I turned and walked back to the guest room without saying another word. Closed the door, locked it. Not to keep her out, but to keep me in. Because the old me, he would have hugged her. He would have said, it's okay, we can work through this. But he was gone now. And the version of me she had left standing in that driveway, he was just getting started. Malene didn't come back that night. Not to knock, not to call. Her car stayed parked 2 houses down, probably because she didn't want the neighbors asking questions. Her pride was loud, even in the dark. But mine had become something far quieter, something with teeth. I spent the evening in the guest room, not because I had to, but because I realized that was the only space in the house untouched by her. No framed photos of us and matching raincoats. No scented candles I never liked. Just a twin bed, a small lamp, and a closet filled with forgotten winter coats and off-season regrets. Around midnight, I walked into our shared bathroom. I wasn't sure why. Maybe to brush my teeth. Maybe to remind myself this was still my house, too. I flipped on the light and noticed immediately something was missing. Her drawer, the one that always stuck and made that scraping sound every morning at 7:03 a.m., was empty. Gone. The hairbrush with the broken bristle, the copper eyeliner, the little jar of migraine balm I used more than she did. She'd packed. She'd come in at some point, maybe while I was asleep, and taken just enough to make it clear she was leaving, but not enough to admit it to herself. I checked the closet. Her side was thinned out. Her favorite black coat missing. Her hiking boots, the ones we bought on a whim but never used, gone. But not all of it. She'd left behind the red scarf I bought her in Chicago, the one she claimed was too loud to wear, but I knew she secretly loved. In her backup wedding band, the one we bought on Etsy when the original got too tight. People don't leave behind wedding bands unless they're making a statement. I sat down on the edge of the bed with the band in my hand and whispered something out loud. Not to her, not to anyone in particular, just to the air. I'm not doing this dance because I could feel it coming. The apology arc, the guilt to gaslight routine, the tragic monologue where she tried to convince me that my silence was more painful than her betrayal. And right on cue, at 3:18 a.m., my phone lit up. Milene, you're being cruel now. I came back to talk. You locked me out. You win. Can we fix this or not? No period at the end. That meant she was angry. I turned the phone over, screen down. I knew what she wanted, not to fix anything. She wanted equilibrium. She wanted me to fold first because that's what I always did. I was the peacemaker, the diffuser, the guy who once apologized for her forgetting our anniversary because I should have reminded her. But not this time. This time, I fell asleep with the ring in my hand, not even under the covers, just sitting there like I was guarding something sacred or maybe mourning it. When I woke up, the ring was gone. I thought maybe I dropped it, searched the bed, the floor, the sheets, nothing. Then I walked out to the kitchen, and there she was standing by the sink, holding the ring in her robe like nothing had happened. Hair messy, no makeup, her favorite mug in her hand, the one with the faded letter M on it that she claimed looked like a heart if you turned it sideways. You weren't supposed to find that, she said quietly, holding the ring up. You weren't supposed to take it back. She looked tired, like someone who'd been rehearsing a speech and suddenly forgot the words. I didn't sleep, she admitted. I noticed. Are you really throwing this all away, Milene? I said slowly. You walked down. You called it a date. You walked out knowing I had dinner waiting. You called it a date. Her eyes welled up, and I watched her fight the urge to use that as leverage. The tears, the trembling chin. She was calculating whether to cry or rage, and for once I didn't flinch. You're hurting me, she said. I know. I turned and walked back to the guest room without saying another word. Closed the door, locked it, not to keep her out, but to keep me in. Because the old me, he would have hugged her. He would have said, "It's okay. We can work through this." But he was gone now. And the version of me she had left standing in that driveway, he was just getting started. The next morning she made eggs, not just scrambled. She made them the way I like them. Medium runny yolks, dash of paprika, cooked in olive oil instead of butter because she knew it made me feel less guilty. I walked into the kitchen half expecting her to say something snide, some offhand comment like truce or still mad, but she didn't speak. She plated the eggs, slid them toward my seat at the island, then returned to her coffee without looking at me. I stood there for a moment, wondering if this was her strategy now, a quiet campaign of nostalgia, food over flowers, habits over apologies. It almost worked. Almost. Then I saw it. A yellow sticky note on the fridge just above the handle unfolded. Plain as daylight. Her handwriting sharp, all caps with little swoops on the Y's. It read, list. Eggs, bread, chicken, trust, forgiveness, time. She left it there like a trap, not desperate, deliberate, planted like a mine she hoped I'd step on so we could have a sweet emotional explosion and fall into bed with half-baked closure. But I wasn't hungry anymore. I pulled the note off the fridge, folded it twice, and slid it into my pocket without a word. She finally spoke. You saw it? I nodded, chewing. The eggs were perfect, which somehow made it worse. You don't have anything to say. You're treating this like a script, I said calmly. You wrote that note like it would fix the fact that you packed eyeliner and condoms and called it dinner. Her face twitched. It wasn't like that. No, I said. What was it like then? She paused. I could tell she had a whole speech ready. Maybe even practiced it in the car mirror the night she sat parked on our street. But now, face to face, the words felt cheap. I felt invisible, she said finally. I still do, I replied. She set her mug down a little too hard. You won't even let me talk. You're not talking, you're managing. She flinched at that. I didn't cheat on you to hurt you, she blurted. I just forgot how it felt to be seen with him. I could breathe. I stared at her and with me. You stared through me for months, lol. You came home, smiled politely, and went quiet. You were here, but you weren't here. I was surviving you, I said. She blinked. I was tiptoeing around your moods, around your silence, around the unspoken contempt you left in the air every time I tried to ask how your day was. You built a fortress around yourself and left the door open just enough to blame me for not walking through. That shut her up. I stood, dropped my fork onto the plate like a gazelle. I'm done being the one who has to explain the damage. I didn't break this. She looked like she was about to cry again, but this time I didn't care. I wasn't going to play the paramedic for wounds. She opened herself. I have to go to work, I said. You're still wearing your pajamas. Then I'll work in them. As I walked past, she grabbed my arm, not hard, but tight enough to freeze me. Are we really going to pretend we're strangers now? I looked at her hand, looked at her. No, I said. Strangers have respect. Then I pulled away and walked to the door. I could feel her eyes on my back. Not loving, not sorry. Calculating. Something was shifting again. I could sense it. She was retreating into a new strategy when I hadn't seen yet. But I knew it was coming because people like Malene, they don't fall, they pivot. And the next move she made would be anything but passive. I came home later than usual that evening on purpose. I parked 2 blocks away just to walk the cold back streets in silence and let the noise inside me cool down before facing whatever version of Malene waited behind the door. When I finally rounded the corner and saw our house, I stopped. She was sitting in the window, not the couch, not the kitchen, in the actual window, knees pulled to her chest, back against the frame like some tragic heroine from a novel she never finished reading. She saw me, didn't move, just stared as if she'd been doing it for hours. I stood there on the sidewalk, not sure whether to go in or turn around and disappear into the night the way I should have months ago. But I went in. The door was unlocked, a passive invitation. Inside, the lights were off except for one lamp in the corner casting a strange amber glow across the living room. She was still perched in the window. No makeup, eyes tired, wearing my old sweatshirt. The sweatshirt. The one I thought she'd thrown out when she declared she was evolving past her past. "Where were you?" she asked softly. "Work," I said. "You're always at work now. You're always home now." She looked down at her hands. "I've been thinking." "That's dangerous for you." That earned a half smile. I deserve that. She slid down from the window like she was made of paper and floated over to me. She stopped too close, close enough for me to smell her hair, which still held the scent of the shampoo I bought last month, the one she called Too Plain. Funny how betrayal makes everything smell nostalgic again. "I think we should talk, really talk, like with no walls." I said nothing. She took my silence as permission. "I wasn't trying to fall for him," she said, voice cracking in the exact way she knew would soften me. "It just happened, and it scared me. And when you locked me out that night, it felt like..." "Like what?" I cut in. "Like karma, like accountability, like you were gone," she whispered, like I killed something. "You did." Tears came then, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't reach for her. I let them fall. Let her taste what she'd poured into me for months. "Lel, I need you to understand something," she said, stepping back just slightly. That night, I didn't sleep with him. I raised an eyebrow. We had dinner. I kissed him once. It didn't go further, I swear. I stared at her, not because I believed her, but because I couldn't tell if she believed herself. "You expect credit for not sleeping with the man you dressed up for?" I asked. "No," she said quickly. "I just want you to know there's still a line I didn't cross." "You kept receipts, Malene. You made a folder. There's no almost when you were cataloging the affair like a scrapbook." Her face went red, then pale. "I was lost," she muttered, "and now I'm scared." That made me pause. She wasn't acting anymore. That much was clear. The bravado was gone. Her usual manipulation had collapsed under the weight of reality, and she was suddenly just a woman in a house she might not be able to stay in. "I know you're leaving," she said, voice nearly inaudible. "I feel it every morning. It's like you're already gone. Even when you're here, you made it easy." "I made it necessary," she whispered, and I saw her lips tremble. "But not easy." For a second, everything inside me wavered because I remembered the woman who used to tuck notes in my luggage before business trips, who once cried over a dog commercial, who held my face like I was the only good thing in a world she couldn't trust. But that woman was now a stranger in my sweatshirt. And then she said it. "If you leave, I'll tell my family everything, but not the truth. I'll twist it. I'll tell them you changed, that you locked me out for no reason, that you punished me emotionally. You'd lie. I'd survive," she said. And there it was, the pivot. The woman in the window was never here for redemption. She was here for leverage. "I've already packed," I said. That surprised her. "Where?" "Away." "You're really going?" "Not yet. One more night." She looked confused. "Why?" I stepped past her into the hall and opened the door to the guest room, because everything she said, everything she threatened, everything she thought she could still control was going to be recorded, just like her confession last week, just like tonight. and the voice memo labeled LRN6.wave was already saved in 3 different cloud folders with 3 trusted people copied. This wasn't revenge. This was preservation, because she never expected me to be silent and smart. The next morning was still, not silent, just still, like the house had stopped trying to breathe for 2 people and finally exhaled everything it had been holding in. Malene was already awake. I could hear her pacing upstairs, opening drawers, closing them a little too hard. She didn't knock on the guest room door. I think by now she understood what that door meant. I got up slowly. No rush. I took my time shaving, brushing my teeth, folding the 1 bag I packed neatly at the foot of the bed. There wasn't much in it, just clothes, chargers, my journal, and the ring she tried to take back. I'd left the recording file where it needed to be safely off-site, backed up and shared. Not to destroy her, just to keep her honest, because the truth has a way of setting people free, sometimes with mercy and sometimes with distance. By 9:12 a.m., I placed a single white envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a handwritten letter, not dramatic, not bitter, just something honest, something final. I stepped into the living room and found her sitting on the couch in silence, wearing a black hoodie, arms folded like she was bracing for a storm. I stood in the doorway. "I'm not going to war with you," I said quietly. "That's the good news." She blinked. "And the bad news?" "There's nothing left to save." She looked away, but she didn't cry, not this time. Maybe because she finally believed it, or maybe because she'd run out of tears. "I'm not angry anymore," I continued. "I'm just done trying to make someone love me who keeps running toward people that don't." "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she said. "I know. Is there someone else?" That made me laugh soft and hollow. "No, just me. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough." She nodded slowly. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't try to guilt me, seduce me, or spin it into a debate. She just sat there, arms wrapped around herself like she finally realized what being alone felt like. I didn't linger. I didn't wait for a last word or a final plea. At the door, I turned back just once. "There's a letter on the table," I said, "and a spare key. You can stay until the lease is up. After that, do whatever you need to do." She didn't answer. I walked out. The sun was out. The air smelled like spring, even though it was still technically winter. And for the first time in years, the weight on my chest wasn't crushing. It was gone. I got in the car, drove 3 towns over to a quiet little rental I'd signed the papers for the night before. Nothing fancy. A small place, but it was clean, untouched, quiet. The kind of place that didn't echo with betrayal. I opened my laptop, hit play on the final voice memo. Day 8. I left. Not because I hate her, but because I remembered I exist. And that's enough of a reason. I saved the file, closed the folder, and finally started my life over.